Hey, folks, here's another edition of the Bobby Bowen Show right here on Facebook, a brand new show, and we are on our 12th episode already. And I got a good friend I hadn't seen or talked to in ages. His name is McCray Dove, and McCray used to sing with the Dixie Melody Boys, and he had his own group called the Dove Brothers. And we've kind of lost contact with each other. We Facebook message each other every once in a while, but I haven't seen you, and it's been over 20 years, I know. How you doing, McCray?
Man, I'm doing fine, and I pray that you are, and it's good to see you, man. A lot of good memories. We used to do a few dates down when I was trying to Dixie Melody Boys. We were Mid-South boys. And
yeah.
In fact, when we were talking about doing this, I don't know if you remember this or not, but used to be a guy, they called him Haystack Promotions.
I remember, yeah.
He was an older gentleman, and it was us, Dixie Melody Boys, Mid-South Boys, and I want to say King's Boys.
Yeah.
Probably right before they changed to the name Chronicle.
I remember that,
so,
yeah.
But we were supposed to do this outside deal. And so we set up, and we still had at that time, the old D&B band sound.
Yeah.
Those big bullfrog speakers. So, I mean, they were used to doing these outside things. And so we set them up, but we stood out there, and we kept looking, and this storm it was looking rougher and rougher. I mean, it's Oklahoma,
Yeah.
So anything could happen quick.
Tornado Alley.
Yeah. And so we're all standing there, and, if you remember Haystack, he talked like this right here. And I said, hey, I said, man, Ed's a little bit worried about this storm, man, and got all this equipment up here. He looked at it, he said, oh, that thing right there, I'm telling you right now, that thing right there going to come on around us. It's going to miss us.
It didn't.
It started coming down. And so we looked at y'all and said he had a place to go, luckily.
Yeah.
And so I remember y'all looked at us and we talked, and we said, look, if y'all go on to the place and y'all set up, and we're going to try to get this thing tore down and dry off. And y'all had some stuff on stage too, and y'all were having to dry them out with hair.
Oh yeah, we probably had our drums up there and guitars and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember that just like it was yesterday. I see him right now, that real high voice. That thing gonna miss us.
Those kind of things happened all the time. I remember one time, and we're going to talk about you here in a second, but these are just funny stories, crazy stories that happen to everybody on the road. But we were in Georgia one time, and it was us and Wendy Bagwell and just some local groups. And Wendy was the headliner, of course. And it was an all-day singing. And it rained all day long. We sat on the bus while the other groups were singing. I think there wasn't hardly anybody there in the audience because it was raining. And they were sitting out in the rain all day long. And so we sat on the bus most of the day and watched the Three Stooges and Andy Griffith Show and all that. And so Wendy was supposed to go on last. Well, he came to the bus. He said, hey, fellas, would y'all mind going on last, trading spots with us? We got to get out of here. We got to be somewhere in the morning. We got a long drive. And we're like, well, sure, no problem. So Wendy did his set. And when he got through, I mean, it's been raining all day. And so we got up to do our set. And the stage was covered with an awning.
Mm-hmm.
All day long, that awning was getting fuller and fuller of water. And we got to our third song, and it fell apart. And all the water just went right on top of us and our equipment, our guitars and everything.
Oh, wow.
Needless to say, we got everything as fast as we could and dried it off and put it under the bus and got out of there. And we sang 3 songs and waited all day long for that. But those kind of stories, it just happens all the time.
And that kind of reminds me sort of the same type of thing, though. And Wendy Bagwell was there. We were in Alabama, it was Dixie Melody Boys. Ed didn't really he loved the people in the South, but for us, we worked so much up north with him and out west.
Yeah.
And then on into Canada, I mean, all over Canada.
Oh, yeah.
That, I don't know a part of Canada that we hadn't been through. If we didn't sing in it, we drove through it, to get somewhere to sing in Canada. So we didn't work a lot in the South, so they knew of us, but we wasn't as popular in the South, say, as Kingsman, Gold City, and, that type of thing. And so for us, sales was not as good. It's just the way it was.
Yeah.
So we get there, and it's an all-day thing, night two. Wendy's there. There's probably, we get there, we go off the bus, there's probably 3,000 or 4,000 people.
Yeah.
But we don't come on until 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Well, Wendy has in his contract, he don't go on after 8. So he has a good crowd. When we get up there, it's a funny story, man. We get up there and we got probably 200 people left out there. I mean, they're all gone. I mean, they've been there all day.
Yeah.
And what it was us and Wendy, and then the rest of the day was filled with area groups. Some sing, some could not. I mean, it was just, blah, 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 blah. Well, man, he's irritated, man. Well, we carried at that time was piano, bass, and Larry, the lauder on harmonica and tambourine and stuff. So we didn't have drums. We didn't need them really the way we did it.
Right.
You got somebody that decides, hey, they need a drummer.
Yeah.
So we get to the last song, man, which was Glory Cloud. That was our anthem. Man.
I remember that song,
When we would do it live, we did it faster than the album. So, I mean, the album was had the brass on it, and it was When we did it live, it was
oh, yeah.
Just kicking it. Jesus will be coming back, it won't be long. And so we get to that song, and here comes the intro, and it's at the right speed, right? But right at the time we get ready to start the verse, this kid that thought he was a drummer jumps on the drum. So we go from oh,
he slowed you down, huh?
The drums just brought it down. It's going to pick it up, and it's not. Larry's trying to get it to pick up. It won't pick up. And so out of the corner of my eye, I see he had stepped back. And the way they had the drums set up this time was not directly behind us. For some reason, the set of drums was set on the right edge of the stage, back of it, but on the right side. Ed walked all the way around. Bass mics are hot, man. So Ed walked around there and he said, "Hey, pal, get off them drums." That kid, man, you hear the sticks, he just drops the sticks and goes, click, 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 click. And here's what happens, man. We're going, Jesus will be coming back. It won't be long. We hear, pick it up. There you go, pick it up. Then we go, Jesus will be coming back. It won't be long. And step out on that cloud and call the spirit.
It probably ruined that guy's drum. He probably never drummed again.
No, it never drummed again, man.
Ed
said, I hated to do that, but boy, it was killing.
Oh, yeah. Kent had a lot of stories about Ed, too. He told me one time, you talking about nobody being there when y'all got up to sing. He told me about, it was toward the end when they were getting really pretty rocky, with their music and everything. And they were doing the old gospel ship. Remember, I'm going to take a trip. They used to do that. He said they were playing Bonifay, Florida. And they were the last group on. And when they started, there was about maybe 500 people out there left. It was like midnight, And by the time they got through with that song, there was like 3 people sitting out there. He said you could hear the folding chairs just folding up and people just turn around and walking off and leaving.
And the same thing happened to them in Hazelhurst. And the reason I know it was because when we came back, they booked a lot of the places that DMV, didn't work anymore. We were put back on because of the quartet thing.
Yeah.
And so Hazelhurst, Georgia was one of them. And on that night was Masters 5, Florida Boys, Spear Family.
Yeah.
And they were standing around talking. They were talking to Ed, and they said, "Ed, you remember the last time you were here at Hazelhurst?" And what they did wasn't Old Gospel Ship. It was he's going to make a comeback.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That was pretty.
Yeah, it was pretty
far
rocky.
out there.
Yeah, yeah.
And the
We're
guy
gospel then, yeah.
They know it goes, and it had set sound, and he was one. He called them rock and roll sound guys. He said had the ponytail at the back, man. And when we came on and we hit them guitars, he said, "Oh, he was loving this," and he just jacked the sound up. This was good, Ed said, but he couldn't get it loud enough to stop the ringing of those chairs clicking, getting out of that.
Oh, yeah.
Click, 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 click.
Those poor guys. They had an
Oh man,
excellent sound, but it was just too soon.
you know what, man? I love
Way
them.
ahead of its time.
Yeah, they came along in 80. Uh,
Around
what was it,
85.
80? Yeah,
Yeah, they
84,
did
85.
Good Old Boys and Too Much
Good Old
Thunder and
Boys
all. Yeah.
album. I loved them, man. I loved it. In
Yeah.
fact, I mean, I a lot of people don't realize this. I'm a huge Blackwood Statesman era fan. I mean, I
Yeah.
know it, grew up on it. But I'm also the type of guy that really likes other styles of music.
Yeah.
But man, when the Dixies came out, man, with that sound, I loved it.
Oh, I did too. I
Man, I
bought
mean,
their records, and I hadn't even seen them in person yet, but I heard them on the radio. I guess it was I know I heard Antioch Church Choir, but then when they came out with Good Old Boys,
yeah,
man, that got me right there.
Good Old Boys, Too Much Thunder.
Yeah.
Look, when they would sing that Fair Weathered Friend.
Yeah.
And that's Dobro and all that was behind it.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, Taco played a piano on those albums.
I think he did.
Gary Jones. Yeah.
Yep.
But the Too Much Thunder and
Rob Fortner played bass and I think lead guitar, a lot of that stuff.
And that's
Rabbit played on stuff, and his brother, not his brother, but his cousin.
Cousin played Junior, Russell Jr.
What was the Gold City's drummer, Noski?
Yeah,
he played the drums on it.
Yeah, great. And you know what, man?
Yeah.
Those two albums are still. I mean, I've got them on. I took them off what I had and put them on a CD.
Yeah.
You can go back and listen to it, and to me, it's just as fresh sounding right now.
Really is. Yeah.
I've always said this. I think, and the reason I know this because I went through it, and we're getting into that. But I always said, if they could afford it, if you took 5 guys, 6 guys, whatever, with that style right there, those first 2 albums, same style as the first City Lights of Mid-South.
Yeah.
Right now, and here's the key, in my opinion. If they'll just say, okay, guys, let's wear the suit and tie.
Yeah.
Let's look. You got so many different. I'm telling you, man, they would be a hit in the business, in the market of Southern gospel music right now.
I think so too. We were both way ahead of our time back then, and they just weren't ready for that. And there wasn't radio.
Mid-South, I mean,
there wasn't radio market for it and all that. You know what? We didn't come here to talk about all that stuff. Even though that's part of it. We came here to talk about you, man.
I was born and raised.
I want you to go back and tell us, where you were born and just kind of where your influences came from when you was a kid.
Okay, I sure will. I was born and raised in Bladen County. Actually, I was born in Elizabethtown. That's where the hospital was. But we lived in Bladenboro.
That's North Carolina, right?
Yep. If you've ever been to Lumberton, it's east of Lumberton.
Yep.
211, running right through there. Small town. Cotton Mill Town was the big thing there. Well, let me say this. What made it famous was the Beast of Bladenboro, which was before my time. There was something around the, I think, early 50s. In fact, they have a festival there now about that, but it made them very popular. Something was just getting cattle, just tearing it up. And I mean, it had the whole town scared. And it got around, and people from all over the country were flying in, coming in, trying to find it, hunt it down.
Kind of like a Bigfoot kind of thing? Or?
Yeah. Huh. Like a Bigfoot thing. Oh, yeah. In fact, let me jump on this right quick. Singing in California at the Dixie Melody Boys night with them, the Quartet Convention when they started one in California. This guy walks up to the table, and he says, I noticed that Ed said you were from Bladenboro, North Carolina. And I said, yeah. He said, back in the 50s, he said, I noticed this is before your time. Are you familiar with what they called the Beast of Bladenboro? I said, yes, sir, I am. He said, I flew my plane, little twin-engine plane from California to Bladenboro, parked at their airport. And I said, Mr. Hester's airport down there. He said, yeah. He said, put it in the hangar. He said, I stayed in those woods for 3 months trying to find that thing. He said, I found a lot of tracks, all this kind of stuff. He said, but we never did find it. So I'm telling Ed about it on the bus. Well, Harold Reed was singing tenor with us at the time. So I'm telling Ed about it after the convention is over. We're heading back. And we're heading to, or singing our way back home.
Yeah.
And so Harold Reed looked at me and he said, I don't believe that. You making all that up, blah, blah, blah. So the next day, Harold loved to read USA Today paper. So he got up that morning, he got his paper, a cup of coffee, and we're sitting on the bus, Ed's over here, and I'm up, in our regular spots. And he's holding the paper up like this, and all of a sudden, like he's turned this way, right? Let's say I'm on this side. Yeah. He pulls the paper down, he goes, I'm not believing this. He said, what? Pulls the paper back up. If you notice, in USA Today, they always have these, like, states, different things, news from the states.
Yeah.
North Carolina, and they could anniversary of the Beast of Bladenboro. The USA Today. I said, I told you, man, I wasn't lying.
Yeah.
I was born in Bladenboro. And
I don't know have you ever heard of a town called Fouke, Arkansas?
No, sir.
You ever remember you were, I don't even know if you were born. How old are you right now?
I'll be 51 in August.
Well, you were born, but back in 1972, that's when they made the first Bigfoot movie, The Legend of Boggy Creek.
Right.
You ever seen that?
Yep.
That's where it was made, in my hometown of Fouke, Arkansas. Yeah, that was the Bigfoot monster thing was going on down there, and they made a movie about it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I can relate, man.
It made our little town popular and still is, and they have a big festival in October, I think it is, every year. And
yeah.
I mean, for a town that only has maybe, I'd say, maybe 2,000 people in it, when they have that festival, they'll have, 4,000 or 5,000.
Yeah. Yeah. They did the same thing where I grew up. They have a festival now, and it's big thing, man.
Yeah. It's
all over the world come down there.
Yeah. Same way here. I mean, some that came down that remembered, that hunted, so they come down and,
Yeah.
But if you come to Bladenboro, my friend, you got to be coming for something. You just don't get up on it. But it was a cotton mill town, and so I grew up there, graduated there, and I started singing at a young age, at 4 years old. I went to my mom and dad would go to the gospel sings, and I remember. Young age, here's the groups. It was the Hopper Brothers and Connie.
Yeah.
And this is back when Kurt Talley was 15 years old, was playing bass and singing a few songs.
Yeah.
Not far back. And the Dixie Melody Boys. Well, the Hoppers opened up, and they were great. Enjoyed them. I enjoyed Connie and Kurt and all them.
Yeah.
And but man, the Dixie Melody Boys walked out, and they had these red fire engine looking suits that match. I mean, the vest and everything. And I mean, I'm sitting on the front row, and I'm like, and there was something about Ed's voice, man, when he started singing. He was young and he was old. He came back. That was their big hit. They got him on the. And I'm telling you, I remember looking at my dad at that young of age, and I said, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so music ran in our family. So I started singing. First 2 songs I learned to sing was One Day at a Time in Hallelujah Square. Mm-hmm. And then it went on from there. And then we would come, Dad played piano, but he only knew two keys. In other words, he knew how to play in D flat and E flat. Now you think most people play like C or F.
Yeah.
He played D flat and E flat. I'm gonna tell you a funny story about that. But Dad, he could play, good. He had a unique style, and he taught me how to start to play. But he didn't know what key was in. All he knew is that D flat was lower than E flat. So we had a bass guitar player and a guitar player. So to tell him what key was in, it was E flat. That was D flat. Serious.
That's it, huh?
All right. We're singing in Wilmington, North Carolina, man. We're invited to sing Dove Family. On the program is King's Children. I think Joey Gore was in the group, and I think maybe Dean Hugh. I can't remember all of them. But on the program, other than them, was Teddy Huffman and the Gems,
Yep.
and the Dixie Melody Boys.
Ah.
This is back when Edwards Quartet had Philip Barker was singing tenor.
Yep.
David Kimbrell was singing lead. Frank Sutton was singing baritone.
Was that lead singer before Kent? I guess it was.
Yep, lead singer before
okay.
Kent. Yeah, Kent took his place. Yeah. Ed on piano, and you had, what do you call it, Killer, Jerry Kelso on the piano. Ed singing bass. Alan was playing rhythm.
Yep.
They didn't have drums then.
Yeah.
At that time. Man, we practiced every Thursday night, man. I mean, that was big time for us. Big time.
I remember those days.
Especially for an 8, 9-year-old kid.
Mm-hmm.
So they call us. We had this guitar player, and he'd get nervous, man. And when he get nervous, he'd get nervous. Start shaking. So, first song we were going to open up with was "What a Lovely Name," and we'd practice, had our program out, first song, and he had the kickoff on it, like that, you know.
Yep.
You know, we wouldn't nowhere professional, so to speak. Well, make welcome, ladies and gentlemen, the Dove family. And I walk out there and I take my mic and I'm standing there, and old Dad looks over there at the guitar player and he says, "Start it." Old D says, "David, you start it." Daddy said, "Oh, you start it." I'm just standing there, man. I mean, there's 1,000 people sitting out there.
Yeah.
I'm just standing there waiting. Old D says, "David, you started." Daddy said, "We practiced it. You started."
So y'all are going through all this on stage while everybody's just sitting there looking at it. So it's total silence in there.
Oh, he's shaking, man. He starts shaking. You see him shaking over there. And he goes, "David, I'm so nervous. I don't even know what key I'm in." Old Daddy get off that piano and he looked at it and he goes,
"That's it."
Put that thumb right in his face like that. Daddy still had to start it off, man. He was just too nervous. Oh, man.
Yeah. I remember those days. I think the first professional group that I used to sing with my family, and I think the first professional group that we sang with was the Happy Goodman Family. And this is when it was Johnny Cook and Tanya and Rusty and Sam. Okay. And we got out and we practiced. We did that same. We practiced and practiced. Yeah, this is a big thing, you know, getting out there and singing. But actually went pretty well, you know, for just a local part-time group. We didn't stand there and look at each other.
I mean, I stood
who's going to kick it off?
It felt like forever.
Yeah. So how did you get hooked up with Dixie Melody Boys? It sounds like that they were your favorite group there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man.
And you ended up singing with them. That's pretty cool.
Well, I put it this way. I started singing in a quartet at age 13, a group called the Countrymen.
Uh-huh.
Gerald Milligan, who was, he came up during that era of the Blackwoods and Statesmen, and that was the style we did. He was an unbelievable arranger. He did full time in the 50s and 60s, but his health wouldn't allow him to stay. Unbelievable piano player, but he played those unbelievable chords, you know, those 6th and 7th and stuff and we practiced. I mean, he had hard practice. This time we'd practice all day on one arrangement. It was that tight. So I learned how to sing that style, which set up the Dove Brothers.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And my voice fit what we did and that energy and stuff. Well, sang with him, but I wanted to go full time. That was my dream. It wasn't about money, but I wanted to go. So I graduated June 1st of 87. And a friend of mine, Dale Guyton, who played bass guitar in the group of the Countrymen, he goes and hears the Kingsmen and another group. I wasn't there, but he went but Ed was there.
Uh-huh.
And so he spoke to Ed, and he said, Ed told me, he said, Dale, he had booked Ed, the band, back in the day,
Yeah.
during the good old boys days.
Yeah.
And he promoted quite a bit in that area. And so he came back, and Ed had told him, he said, I'm going back quartet style. And so he didn't tell Dale that he was looking for any singer. He just said he was going to go back quartet. And he was putting the group together now. So that's the way Dale took it. So as soon as Dale got home, he called me because he knew that was my life dream.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So he called me, and he gave me Ed's number, and I called, but Ed was gone. And so I can't remember if it was Alan and I think it was Alan who took my number. He was in office at that time.
Yeah.
Well, nobody called me back, but it wasn't that he didn't tell it or nothing like that. I mean, that's normal. I mean, 3 days, I said, I'm going to call again. I did, and I got a hold of Ed then.
Yeah.
So I told Ed who I was, and what was ironic, he sang with Gerald with a group called the Serenaders back in the day.
Yeah.
Gerald had a group called the Serenaders in the 50s, and he put together a group called the New Serenaders, which was Ed O'Neill on bass, Buddy Burton, that name rings a bell.
Yeah.
He was singing lead. Vern Sullivan, who wrote a lot of great songs, Rainbow Avenue, He Shall Reign Forever, songs like that.
Yeah.
He sang lead, and Gerald sang the tenor, played piano. But they had that old Statesman Blackwood style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and two, in the early 70s, Gerald filled in with Dixie Melody Boys on piano a few times. I played with him for a little while. Anyhow, so he knew Gerald. Well, when I talked to him, he said, well, I think I got everything together. The original group going back was supposed to be Dave Walker singing tenor, David DeLauder, Larry's brother, singing lead, and Larry was going to sing baritone, and Ed on bass, and Larry was going to play piano, and David was going to play bass. So he was trying to cut the cost down as well.
Yeah, sure.
They could sing, but Ed wanted a bigger sound. I mean, they were good singers. Larry's a good singer. His brother was a good singer. And so then Ed said, let me hear what this Dove boy's got. So he calls me. This is crazy, man, because I thought, well, this thing's over. So my next plan was I was going to go to Pembroke State, try to major in voice, that kind of thing. I had a teacher that in high school with Glee Club and all that was going to work it out. I was going to go to a community college and take some courses I needed to for the first 2 years and then transfer, blah, blah, blah. That was my plan. Okay. Well, I'm over at a friend's house, staying over there. In fact, we're around a piano, me and him and another guy, Denver Carter, and Kevin Davis. His dad had a group called the Apostles, and I had filled in with him a time or two and sang with him a little bit. Good friends. So I was going to stay over there that weekend. This terrible storm had took place. Well, in the meantime, he had knocked out some phone lines where Ed was trying to get a hold of me. So he gets a hold of Gerald Milligan, and Gerald says, I tell you what I'm going to do, Ed. He said, I know when the storms are bad, his mom and dad's phone lines, they will not work.
Yeah.
He said, it takes a while for them to dry out, so I'll drive over there and see if he's over there. So he drove, but I wasn't, but Mama knew where I was. So at 11 o'clock, midnight, she calls over there where I was and says, hey, Ed O'Neill's been trying to get a hold of you. And he said to call him. He didn't care what time it was. And so I said, call him right now. And she said, that's what he said. So I did. And he was up. He picked it right up.
Yeah.
He said, talked to him for a little bit. He said, can you be here in the morning? And I said, I didn't even have my own car then. And I said, well, if I can get Mom or Dad to take me. And so Mama took me. So I went there. I knew all the stuff, man. I was ready. I mean, all the Dixie Melody Boys stuff, the DMV band stuff. I mean, I knew, that I was ready.
He's ready.
So I get there, and he looks at me and he says, what do you know of our stuff? And I said, well, I know, man, our church choir, I know Good Old Boys. I know, I'm talking to he ain't want to hear that there. But, Antioch Church Choir he was cool with. Well, here's how he made me try out. He said, have you ever heard this song called There's Power in Prayer? And I said, It was a Henson song, but I hadn't heard the new album yet.
Yeah.
And so I was more of a quartet guy than a family mix group, which I was a fan of the Hensons.
Yeah.
But he said, well, I tell you what, between now, we're going to drive over to the church where we've got a little system set up. He said, we'll do Antioch Church Choir, but I want you to listen. I got words to it. I want you to listen to that song from here to there. And I'd like for you to do a verse and chorus of it. Okay. So I'm sitting, I get on this bus. I was excited. Dixie Melody Boys bus. Mm-hmm. So I'm listening to the song, listening to the words, and it's featuring Bowen.
Yeah. And
so it's, it's got that somewhere, somebody, real country, praying tonight, that type of thing. But that's not me.
Right.
So I was listening to it. I was wow. So I do Antioch Church Choir. He said, can you do it? You think you could do a little bit of that one? And so Larry's playing the piano. So I said, let me try. So I'm starting it out. I'm doing it like, somewhere, somebody, that big voice, is praying tonight for a loved one who's wandered. And when I hit it like that, Ed goes, does his hand on his arm like that. He goes, so then we go to the chorus. Oh, there's power in prayer. And I kind of tear up thinking about it. And he throws his hands up in the air. He says, I found my man. He said, y'all boys keep singing. I'm going to talk to Mama. And so I sang, and I remember looking at my mom, and he says, Miss Dove, he said, I can see it in your eyes. You're scared. He said, I promise you, I'll treat him just like he's my own son. And he did, man.
Yeah.
I was there 11 years.
Yeah.
I remember I'd never been nowhere, man. I didn't know all this kind. I get this thing in the mail. And this store may not mean nothing to nobody, but it does to me. I was 17 when I went with him. And so on my 18th birthday, I get, this letter from the government. I don't have a clue what it is. Sounds important. Kind of scares me.
Yeah.
So I go to Ed's house and knock on the door. I said, Ed, man, I've got something. I don't know what this is. So he picks it up and he looks at it and he goes, oh, son, they want you to, you got to register. They want you to register. Everybody has to register. Yeah. Come on, I'll take you down to the post office. We'll do it. Ain't no big deal. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
We went to the post office, man. He could have said, I was going down there. No, he went with me.
Yeah.
Like my dad would.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot from him. I learned how to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Man, he don't mind telling me, when I went with him, he was broke. Financially broke.
Yeah, I know.
DMV, and as great as it was. And I loved it. And he had to kind of fight some things, because some people would stand in office,
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was trying to get back in the industry that he knew.
That he knew, yeah.
Yeah. And so we didn't make no money. He was doing the best he could. Yeah. But me and Larry stayed because we loved it and we were learning.
Yeah.
And he put us out front. There was times he had to be hard. And I used to think, why is he on me like this?
Yeah.
But when I look back at it, you think about it, you get a bus full of 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old boys.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody got to be the daddy figure. Somebody got to
That's
be
true.
tough
That's
love.
true. That's true.
And when I look back at it now, man, I'm so thankful to that, because he molded me to the way I think today on things.
Yep.
I remember we were singing in Missouri with the Hempfields, Kansas City, Missouri. I don't know if you remember, there was I can't remember his name, but I don't know, he might have booked y'all during that time. He was a promoter, but he had a hook, steel hook in it. What do you call them? I can't pronounce it, but
prosthetic or whatever.
Yeah. But his was the hook. You could actually see. Now this is back, but he was a great promoter. And it was packed. But I'm gonna tell you, sitting on the front row, and we walk out on the stage and sitting on the front row. Now I'm just gonna be real with you, man. There was a lady, beautiful lady, but she had on the shortest skirt that could be possible.
Oh boy, sitting on the front row, yeah.
Sitting on the front row, legs crossed her front. We finished the first song. Here's the first thing Ed O'Neill says. He turns around, looks at us, he said, "All right, boys, get your mind on Jesus, devil sitting on the front row." Yeah. I mean, man, he carried me all over the world. Canada, man. We lived in Canada.
We love Canada. Still do.
Yeah. We would do, I remember one year, my last trip with him was 38 straight days. We sang every night except 2. And that was covered. And we worked in Canada, Western Canada. We went into Saskatoon and all that.
Yep.
That area.
Saskatchewan. Yeah.
Yeah, Medicine Hat.
Yep.
Alberta, or however you call it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but what we done though, we would always start in Pennsylvania, New Year's Eve. We always did our tour January to February, and we would start there, and we just make this big old circle.
Yep.
And so we started in Pennsylvania, when we worked, Minnesota, North Dakota, blah 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 blah.
Yep.
We'd be in Oregon, California, but this time we went on over into Canada, Vancouver.
Yeah.
Broke over in that area, and then went on up. Then come back down, worked Seattle, Washington. Jim Arneson, great guy, blessed, man, I miss him. He got in the car wreck and going to be with the Lord, but he was a good promoter. And Ralph Dean, and then we drove deadhead from California to North Myrtle Beach when they were first starting Singing in the Sun stuff, just getting started doing that. And it took us 2.5 days. We drove. All we did was stop, fuel, eat, rode there.
Was Rayburn still driving then?
No. Rayburn had not been with us maybe a year.
Okay.
And but Jamie Bramlett was driving for us at the time.
Okay.
And so and him and Eric Hollis would split, and then Ed would drive some. If Ed drove, I was up, because back then, man, I could see way off. And that was the time when I learned a lot from him. That was the time I learned. He would drive in the morning. He'd get me up. And I sit up there, and, man, we talk about gospel music and life and decisions and,
Yeah.
But so we did that North Myrtle Beach, and then took off from there and went to Florida and did a cruise for a week, which that was a good break. But then we sang, after we got off the cruise, sang all the way back. By the time I had them all up, my last, hurrah with them was 38 days.
Wow.
But, I mean, that's the way we did it. I mean,
Yeah.
it was nothing for us to do 20 days, come home for 2, back out for 4, come back out for 10, come back for, it's a constant.
Yeah.
But, you had to. You never knew when you were going to have that bad week, So you had to have something built up to pull from.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're big flats, there's some of them, at that time. Yeah. But we worked all the major. And so I did that, and I just had this sound and a dream, sing with my brother. And it was eating away at me, and show you the kind of person Ed is. I know that's what I want to do. Me and him talked about it. He had just bought this new bus, new for us anyway. Nice, probably the nicest bus he ever had.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, Ed, I said, I tell you what, I said, you just got this bus. I said, I'll stay with you for 5 more years. I said, and between now and then. And so he said, okay. Well, a few months passed by, and he could tell my mind was thinking future. It wasn't that it was against me or nothing. So he come up to me and he said, Mike, he said, I appreciate, he said, I know your commitment. I don't doubt that. He said, but you know as well as I do, when your heart's not in it, your heart's somewhere else, your mind's somewhere else, you're no good and we're no good to you. And he said, there's no way you're going to be able to build that group without being able to put all your time in it, finding what you got to put together and all that. And he said, can you give me 3 months? And I said, yeah, I will, and I appreciate it. And so when he paid me, man, he paid me what he owed me, and then he paid me for 2 more months.
Wow.
I didn't ask for no better than that.
Nice man. Very nice
Yeah.
man. Yeah. So,
and, you know, we had our disagreements, you know. There was times
we all do.
Yeah, there was times he still felt, I guess in his mind, he thought I was still 18 and I was 27. And I say, hey, man.
You were still like a son to him, you know. So.
Oh, yeah. Still am. I talk to him almost every day.
Yeah.
And I go, in fact, you know, we we're not supposed to with the shutdown, but, you know, I went by and saw him.
Yeah.
So,
don't worry about
him and Rayburn. And so, they were 20 miles from me, 25. So, and Ed's 80. He'll be 84 in May, I think.
Yeah, it's hard to believe.
I know, so I'm talking a lot about him, but he really had a lot to do with my life.
Sure,
still does.
Yeah.
So when I started the Dove Brothers, I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I felt like there was a place for that style at the time. And I've had people to ask us, how did we become successful so fast? And it was just timing. When I look back on with the Lord, number one. I mean, folks, that's a given. And I give him praise for every part of my life. But it was timing. Cathedrals had announced retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Gold City was still in, you know, the change a little bit. Yeah, transition. I mean, they were still strong. I don't think that would mean. But JD had passed away. So there was an era there with the people that my style would tie into. Then you had Perfect Heart disbanded. Brian Free and Assurance. Brian goes solo. So for the quartet, who do you have? Yeah. You know, you've only got one or two.
And the Kingsmen kind of went through a change too.
Yeah, the Kingsmen going through the change and things. And the Hamill's not there anymore. So here I come with my brother and 4, you know, I come with 4 other guys nobody knows. Me and Berman Porter basically grew up together. Lord bless us with finding John Rulapal, who had the style and which had the feeling of Rosie Roselle. Yeah. Berman had the rhythm of the Chief. It was just, and that's the way we promoted it. Yeah. The look, the presentation, and that's what we did. Yeah. The thing that we did do, when we went in the studio, I knew that I kept the vocal arrangements the same. Our bread and butter, where other people's was, find new songs. You got to find this new hit song. That was not our bread and butter. What our bread and butter was going back, bringing that song back. Yeah. Vamp the music up just enough to where it would compete with the other instruments on radio. Now that's when still radio was pretty strong. Yeah. So that's what we do, and all of us is under 30 years old. Wow. Me and Berman, we're 28. The rest of them are like, you know, my brother, he's 26. Or Richard, our piano player, I think he's 23 maybe. And John might have been 20 years old, 19, 20 years old.
Yeah.
But we don't jump right out there. We practice. When I came off the road, put that combination together, we practiced from April of 1998. And we would do little concerts, just to get some, but we practiced 8-hour practice every weekend from April to August.
Wow.
I mean, put the program together. We worked on stage. We worked on.
You guys, I never saw you do that, but you did kind of a show where you were imitating like the Statesman and
Yeah, but the
things like
key
that,
was, well, no, what we didn't. What we did was we wanted our own lick, but we wanted the people that remember those days that the feeling felt the same.
Yeah.
And for someone who never saw it before, it was brand new.
Yeah.
You catch what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because there was only one Jay Cass.
Oh yeah.
And I was already known for energy and moving and stuff. So that was natural for me.
Yeah.
But the Statesmen were too. So here I have we worked on it and we studied it. Okay, what made that sound unique? Because we stole some, I say stole stuff from Statesman, Blackwoods, Oak Ridge with Smitty Gatlin, different things that and would use them, and we worked on them. And then I just sat around and picked Jay Cass's brain or Hovey Lister. Hovey Lister told me, he said, if you want to be as good as a Statesman were, son, I got one word for you. I said, okay, what's that? He said, practice, 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 practice. And I took it to heart. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
And that sound, when we hit the road, now the sound is already gelled because of so much practicing that no one was going to say, well, they let them stay together a little longer, let that sound gel. It was already there. Yeah. Because we practiced so much. Right. And we knew what we were going to do. So when we came on, the sound was there, the show was there, boom. And so that helped us. We didn't have to wait. Well, here comes this energy that they haven't seen in a long time, doing Getaway Jordan, Didn't It Rain? And I sang the way I felt it. If I felt like kicking, I kicked. If I felt like jumping, I jumped. I mean, that was my whole career.
You were very active on stage, that's for sure.
Yeah, that was me. It was animated. Yeah. I mean, that was just, it wasn't a put on. It's just the way I sung. I mean,
felt the music, yeah.
Ed used to say, son, I knew something was fixing to happen. I saw that look in your eye. Yeah. And and that's how we did it. And so next thing I know, we're Quartet of the Year in about 2.5 years. Oh, I lost you.
Yeah, there you are.
There you are. I'm sorry. But
so I mean, it was pretty popular, what I could tell. So what happened? Why did it
changes? Lost the magic. And then I went to a different style. I did exactly what Ed did. And I thought the market was bigger.
You tried to do more of a Christian country thing?
I did more country gospel sound. And then I had the band, and I did exactly what, you go from 5 guys in matching suits, sharp suits. I ain't talking about, I spent money on them things, man. Yeah. Sharp suits. You go from that to here I am in a cowboy coat, jeans, boots.
What made you decide to do that, though? I mean, when you had that thing going there.
I felt like the sound wasn't there. I didn't have the vocals. My brother came off, when he came off the road, that really was nailing the coffin. But even before that, I felt like we had to. I just saw all the young people going bluegrass. Yeah. I saw them going, it wasn't in our music. Because if you remember back in the day, man, y'all come off stage, we come off stage. Who would you see standing on the side of the stage? You'd see 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-old guys. One of them might have a guitar in his hand. Yeah. Larry DeLauder, who was just as big a part of the Dixie Melody Boys as I was, I couldn't count how many kids would come up to him with a harmonica.
Yeah.
And want him to sign it, and would
Yep.
be working on it, and he would show them how to play it properly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if you're playing if you're playing in G, you got to play a C harmonica
Yeah.
or something like that.
Right.
So different things like that. I wasn't seeing that anymore. Nobody, no piano players. I mean, we'd work with y'all, we'd work with the Hensons, whatever. Man, you'd see this group of kids watching every move y'all made.
Yep.
And so I would say, you know what? Not every kid, not every young person is a singer, but they put a guitar in their hand and blow your mind.
Right.
That was what I was trying to do. So I had my nephew playing drums, which plays with a band now called Blackwater. He is beyond me in talent. I mean, unbelievable guitar player, great drummer. He sings. He does sort of like the Eagles type thing. He sings with them and plays the drums, and that's hard to do.
Yeah.
So I just didn't have the sound. So I tried some other things, and the people didn't want to see me. And so the industry, I'm not saying that they blackballed me, but they didn't need me.
Yeah.
And I think when people thought some thought I went country. And I might, yeah. And I did songs like I Thought He Walked on Water, or Lord, I Hope This Day Is Good.
Yeah.
And then I went through all the emotions when I took it off the road. I had changed the name to McCray Dove Band. It was just three of us. Had a steel guitar player who was singing backup. He played steel and lead. And I had Devin on drums singing backup tenor. So I said, well, I'll just try to do this little maybe Alabama-ish sound.
Yeah.
And I worked some places with that sound that I couldn't have went as a quartet.
Right.
I put it this way, I don't regret not one decision that I made, because I learned something from every one of them. But if I hadn't done what I'd done, I don't think Devin, my nephew, would be in the position he's in. So I'm thankful for that. Very talented. I believe one day the world's going to see how talented he is.
Right.
And so I don't, I make some bad decisions, but God had other plans. I think that I went through all that. I went broke, dead broke. My thought was, well, I'll build this other audience. It's out there. And I went to the fairs and worked the showcases, and I thought, well, if I can get 60 fairs and 60 churches, I had it all planned.
Yeah.
And that ain't what God wanted. And not that's bad. What I'm saying is, it's not what He had for me.
Right.
To where I'm at right now in my life. So we started the New Dove Brothers. That worked. So I said, okay, well, let me go back and start the New Dove Brothers. And we could sing. It was a great sound, but it just wasn't meant to be. It was nothing that it wasn't no big fuss or nothing. But I lived in North Carolina, and Tony Peace lived in Georgia, and Wesley Smith lived in Alabama. It was just financially, the way we had it set up was doing it. It didn't matter where you go, somebody's going to lose money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, sure.
Yeah, so, but we did it for about 2 years, maybe 3. And we just couldn't get it off the ground where it needed to be.
Yeah.
It was sporadic, living-wise. So, and then we went back. I went back to what I was good at, and Tony was good at, so. But I went through all that before the New Dove Brothers deal. I mean, I was dead broke. I mean, broke.
Yeah.
And I remember standing, looking at my house, fixing to lose it, man, where my kids grew up. And I went through all the emotions for it. I went through the blame game. I went through being mad. I went through depression. All this the whole thing. I went through it. I know the industry's talking about me. I know they were like, oh, man, he blew it. And I felt like a failure.
Yeah.
I mean, man, I was like, and one day I just stood out there in the yard looking at my house. I said, Lord, who am I? Because right now I don't have a clue.
Yeah.
And that's all I see. And I walked in the house. It wasn't snap of the finger. But when I prayed that, God began to start showing me little by little who I was and where he wanted me. But I had to go through some fire.
Yeah.
And he began to show me failures. Here's the thing that I tell people. If you want God to really work something in your life, you got to accept the truth that he reveals about you.
Right.
And I can prove it scripture-wise. When the lady comes to Jesus and she wants him to work this miracle with her daughter, and basically Jesus says, you know, he almost calls her a dog.
Yeah.
You know, it's not what I'm here to do.
Right.
A lot of times people jump over this one word that she says. They'll jump over to the part where she says, but even the dogs eat crumbs from the master's table.
Yep.
But before she said that, the word she said was true.
Yeah.
She accepted
the
truth about who she was.
Right.
But she said, but I'm not leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he says your faith. And so when you accept the truth that he reveals about you, then he can start doing some work. Until you accept that truth.
Right.
Accept the failures, but accept them, not accept them as a failure, accept the failures of, okay, yeah, I made that decision. It wasn't a good decision. But I learned something from it. Dwayne Allen told me one time, he said, I don't regret anything I've ever done. And he said, I tell you why. Because I learned it was good or I learned it was bad. I learned something from every one of them.
You learn, that's for sure.
And that's the way I took it.
Yeah,
so
man.
Then, next thing I know, long story short, I'm starting to read his word. Things are coming at me. I started studying about faith and all these things. I tell people all the time, Jesus didn't mean nothing at all about size when he mentions have faith as a grain of a mustard seed. He didn't say size. He said as a grain. I said it's not the size of the seed. It's the size of the faith in the seed.
Right.
It's determined. You can't stop one from growing. You plant it in the ground, you cover it up with dirt, put asphalt on top of it. It's going to come up.
Right.
Determination and faith run parallel. So once that hit me, man, I said, okay, Lord, I'm tired of being in this mud hole. And I went out, got it working into the roofing business, and I was still singing, had New Dove Brothers. Things started changing, but he began to show me things in his word, and I said, well, man, I ain't got nobody to share it with. So then it hit me, and I said, okay, Lord. I said, if you ever open up the door for me to go speak, I'll walk through it. Next thing I know, about 3 weeks later, I'm in Ohio, singing a little bit, preaching a little bit, carrying my baby boy with me to Ohio. And we sang at this church in Colerain, North Carolina, that I'd sang many times, Dixie Melody Boys, Dove Brothers, even the New Dove Brothers. They'd been without a pastor, and I just told them, I said, well, look, you need somebody to fill in for you on a Sunday, and I'm home, I would. Long story short, I filled in a few times. And I could go even longer with how that's set up, but that's where the Lord put me. So I became a sales rep in the roofing business, did it for about 5-6 years, I guess. And had a guy that owned the business, man, won't you have your own? Because I was driving almost 2 hours to work. And so Lord opened the door to start that. And so I do that during the week and preach on Wednesday nights and Sunday morning, Sunday night. Then got the invitation to come sing at the Memphis Quartet show, the original Dove Brothers.
Yeah.
So we did that. Next thing I know, man, our phone was ringing off, and all of us is doing different things. And so we had a meeting. We said, well, let's do selective dates. So we're going to supposed to Memphis again, and then we do the Quartet convention. We're going to do Lawrenceburg. We're going to do Dollywood.
Yeah.
And a date up in Pennsylvania, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, big Labor Day weekend they do there. We could only do 5 or 10 days, 10 at the most if we're lucky. Yeah. But it's amazing how this whole thing comes back to full circle.
Always is, man. I mean, you turn it over to the Lord and just say, whatever you want to do with me, I'm here. And
you know what? I tell people, I said, look, go ahead and get mad with him. He can handle it. Yeah. He'll just wait on him. He'll let you throw your little tantrum. Oh, yeah. Tantrum fit just like he did Joshua.
Yep.
Joshua threw one. Lord, he stood back, let him throw it, look, and he said, okay, now here's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's the same way with us. Once we get past that, and we say, okay, Lord, and he said, okay, now we can get to work. And that's it. And whether you're singing and you want to be in gospel music, it takes dedication, it takes patience, and just waiting. If this is what you want to do, you work on the craft, be the best you can be at whatever style you are. I had a guy one time, he said, man, why can't I make it? I said, well, number one, I said, let me ask you this. I said, we know you're going to do it for the Lord. We know that. But let's move that. That's a given. You got to have that. You won't make it without it. I said, but tell me what you can offer that 1,000 other soloists can't.
Yeah.
You couldn't tell me.
Yeah.
I said, you got to find what makes you different than anybody else.
Right.
And you got to have that. When I hear Bobby Bowen, I know that's Bobby Bowen vocally. I know that's Bobby Bowen.
Yeah.
When you take one of my favorite songs, and y'all did it with Mid-South too. Heart
Collector.
Heart Collector.
Yeah.
That's different, man.
Yeah.
You know, or when y'all would sing City Lights.
Yeah.
I knew that was Bobby hit that last note. Going home. You know.
Yeah.
So with McCray, like him or don't like him, vocally, I sung hard, but you know that was me.
Yeah.
You know, I knew that was Jim Hamill. I knew that was Kent Humphreys, man. I still know Kent Humphreys' voice. That's a distinctive voice. Ivan Parker's distinctive. I
always say, you know, I don't listen to country music much anymore because I just don't care for a lot of it now. But back in the 90s, especially, there was some really good songs back then. But if somebody came on the radio, you knew exactly who it was. Now they all kind of sound alike.
They do, man.
I knew it was Vince Gill. I knew it was George Strait. I knew it was Alan Jackson. I knew it was Clint Black when they came on.
I knew it was Ronnie Millsap, man.
Who is that? He sounds just like that other guy I just heard.
Yeah.
You know? Everybody had a distinct
I hear a lot
voice.
of that and I hear that a lot on, and I'm just going to say Southern Gospel Radio. They can say what they want to, get mad. I'm not out there.
Yeah.
But when I listen to it, they all sound like they're singing the same ballad with different lyrics, and they got the same intro on their barn burners. They're all using the same instrumentations. They're all doing the same thing, and I'm like, who is that? Yeah. And they're and vocally, everybody's doing the same vocal lick. You got one vocal, da da. The next guy, you listen to him, he does the same move on the next one.
Yeah.
You know, even though you could put Bobby Bowen in, and I'm just going to put it to you this way. You could put you in sort of in the same, I'd say the same bowl with Kenny Henson, but you're not Kenny Henson, and Kenny Henson went Bobby Bowen. I know Kenny's voice. Both of you could sing the Lighthouse, and I could say, well, that's Kenny Henson singing the Lighthouse.
Sure.
That's Bobby Bowen singing.
For sure, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You made it your song. You didn't try to sing it like Kenny.
Exactly.
You know, and there's some songs, you know, when I sing, I just sing how I feel it, and that's how you've done it your whole life.
Yeah. And
that's what I think that the industry's missing right now. And another thing, to me, they missed the boat, and I'm just going to say it. They missed the boat on that late 80s, early 90s Christian country thing.
Yeah.
I think they did. I mean, they can say they didn't, but I think they getting behind it and trying to promote it and make it a part of, you know. Mm-hmm. Ed used to say this all the time. He said it wasn't the fans.
No, they loved it.
It wasn't the fans.
It was some people in the industry. Yeah.
I mean, but because right now, things that I hear, y'all, you know, you take down at the Tabernacle and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That style is what I'm hearing right now from Isaacs.
Oh yeah.
You know, and
it was just
ahead of its time.
Ahead of its time, just like the D&B band. They were way ahead of their time. We were ahead of our time.
Oh yeah.
But it was something that the style we loved, and it was us. It was who we were. Because when I joined the group back in '82, it was a Southern Gospel Quartet.
I remember. I remember
And
listening to
I was a big Henson fan. I loved Kenny's singing, and that's who I tried to pattern my singing
But
after.
here's one I could never understand, though, and no one else can explain it to me either. The Hensons in the 80s and early 90s, they were just as country as anything you ever heard.
They got more country as time went on. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Call Me Gone is George Jones country.
That's about as country as you can get right there. Yeah.
It was #1.
Yeah.
And all they do is say, call me a dream.
Yeah.
And the crowd just starts screaming and
hollering.
hollering.
Yeah.
And the industry was behind that.
Yeah.
That's what I couldn't understand. How the good old boys, Last Train to Glory, things that, back, man, that was my favorite thing that they did back then, when it was Dixie Melody Boys still then. That came last night while I was sleeping.
Yeah.
That big ending.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's the reason I called Kent, and I said, Kent, man, I said, if I could get all the guys together, would you do it? And he said, yeah, and I got them all together. And he don't tell you, I watched the interview. Alan almost backed out.
He did.
Yeah.
I can't believe that.
I think he was getting cold feet.
Oh, man.
But, it's greater vocals as he is.
Great singer.
And see, that was the thing, the way they did it. You knew that was Alan when he was singing the lead on it. And then Kent was totally different. And I like, and Frank's tenor, he didn't sing as much, but man, that tone he put in that harmony. Oh, yeah. Made the sound.
Oh, yeah.
You put those three together.
Yep.
That's like I used to tell people all the time. You take Buck Rambo out of the mix of the Rambos. To me, you ain't got the Rambo.
You got the sound. That's right.
Don't have the sound. So,
that's right.
Anyway.
Man,
but I'm preaching and singing
preaching.
A little bit.
This has been awesome, man. I love your story and you're so, I can tell you're passionate, man, about gospel music and we've all been down that road where we tried to make things work, and it did work for us. We did a lot of things we never would have done in Southern gospel.
Yeah.
Played a lot of places. Got to do.
And I still get requests. I still get requests for some of the stuff that we did. Yeah. Some of the albums. I wrote this song. Southern Radio didn't like it. Said it was just too much of a country song. And I wrote one called "If I Knew Then What I Know Now." And I was trying to write songs where people were at in their life. Yeah. Real life stuff. And that. Yeah, Jesus is the answer, but let's really talk about what you're going through. And I remember being in these conversations with a guy that had been through a marriage breakup. And he said, man, if I knew then what I know now, man, I'd been different. I'd have kept that. That's what I wrote about. Yeah. If I knew then what I know now. And I had that Vern Gosling still, I call it. Yeah. And I put that thing, it had a recitation in it.
You got a pretty good country voice there, man. I never heard you sing that style.
What, man? You got to get it in the right key. You get it in the right key, I'm all right. I mean, if you put me in Kenny's keys, I can't do it.
You got to get up there.
Yeah. But man, you get me in the right key, I can do it a little bit. But I enjoy it, man.
This has been fun, man. I'm glad I got to talk with you again and you share your heart with everybody. And
if you're coming my way, Eastern North Carolina, as long as you'll sing Heart Collector,
I'll do it.
Church.
I'll do it, man. I might even get you up to sing it with me.
I'll do it.
Let you sing the second verse or something.
All right.
You'll have to practice, man.
I'll practice. Believe me, I will.
Hey, thanks, McCray. Really appreciate it. Good to see you again. Good to talk with you again. Appreciate you, man.
And I appreciate what you're doing. This is great.
You're welcome. I appreciate you coming on with me.
Yes, sir, my friend. God bless.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.